They say Florida is where people come to retire. They never say it's where some of us are left. The air here smells like salt and antiseptic. Mornings start with the sound of gulls and wheelchairs. Some women knit. Some stare out the window, waiting for faces that never walk through the door. Me, I wait for my son. Daniel was my only child. My husband died young, a heart attack at 52. So it was Daniel and me, side by side against the world. He used to call me his partner in crime. Now, I suppose I'm just part of his past. When I fell that winter, slipped right by the hibiscus bush I planted myself, I didn't think it'd be the fall that changed everything. But it was. I broke my hip, and my illusion of being needed all in the same night. He came down from Miami looking expensive. Crisp shirt, phone that never stopped buzzing, the smell of cologne that didn't belong to this world of Bengay and breakfast trays. He kissed my forehead like a politician and said, "Mom, we've got to think practically." Practical. That's the word people use when they're about to stop loving you out loud. 2 weeks later, I was here. The Cypress Palms Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, Clearwater, Florida. Room 204. Shared with a woman who believes her cat still lives here somewhere. He called it a peaceful place. Peaceful feels a lot like forgotten. At first, I tried to make it home. Put up family photos, hung my seashell wind chime by the window. I even baked cookies for the nurses, until one said, "Ma'am, we can't accept food from residents." I smiled anyway, because that's what mothers do. We make comfort out of crumbs. He promised he'd visit every weekend. He came twice. Both times he kept checking his watch, talking about meetings and clients. He left early the second time. I waved from the window as his car pulled out, headlights bright against the wet pavement. The sky was pink that night. That strange Florida pink that looks like forgiveness, trying too hard. If you're still here, tell me in the comments. Have you ever realized the person you raised no longer knows how to look at you without guilt? Days became months. I learned which nurses cared and which just clocked in. I learned how to measure time by the sound of the lunch carts and the squeak of the janitor's mop. And then, one humid August morning, as the palms outside bent in the storm wind, the receptionist came to my room and said, "Ms. M, your son's in the lobby. Says it's urgent." I hadn't heard those words in years. "Your son's here." I pulled on my cardigan, brushed my hair, and whispered a prayer. Because something told me this wasn't a visit. It was a reckoning. I found him sitting in the visitor's lounge. Daniel, my son, in his $1,000 suit, looking like a man who'd run out of air. He was tapping his foot, staring at the linoleum, the way people do when they've rehearsed an apology they're not sure will land. When he saw me, he stood up too fast, tried to smile. "Hey, Mom." That voice, still my boy's, but hollowed out. I hadn't heard it in months, maybe a year. He looked thinner, tired. His hair, once the color of sunburned sand, was touched with gray now. "Are you okay?" I asked, the way mothers always do, even when it's the wrong question. He nodded, sat back down. I messed up, Mom." He started talking about business, bad deals, partners walking out, investors suing. Words that sounded expensive and empty at the same time. Then he said it. "Mom, I need money." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. In this place, people ask for pills, prayers, or peace, not cash. I blinked. "Daniel, I don't have money. You know that." He rubbed his temples. "You do. Dad's life insurance. You're still getting that small payout every month. I checked. The air went still. Even the hum of the air conditioner felt louder. He wasn't visiting. He was scavenging. I raised you better than this, I said quietly.
His jaw tightened. And I worked my whole life so you wouldn't have to end up in a place like this, he snapped. That one stung. Sharp, clean. Because there's always a piece of truth hidden in cruelty. He wasn't wrong. He just forgot that love doesn't owe anyone an explanation. We sat there for a long moment, mother and son, separated by more than just a coffee table. The storm outside beat against the glass. Florida thunder. Sudden, loud, and gone before you can breathe. "I'm sorry," he finally said. I don't know what else to do. I've lost everything." I studied his face. The man who used to sleep on my chest as a baby, now asking for something I couldn't give. "You didn't lose everything," I told him. "You just misplaced your soul for a while." He looked at me like he didn't understand. Maybe he didn't. In the city, souls don't spend much time in circulation. I wanted to reach for his hand, but something stopped me. Not anger, not pride, maybe survival. Because for years I'd prayed for him to come back, needing me. I never thought it would feel like this. He said, "So that's a no?" I said, "That's a not like this." He stood up, ran a hand through his hair. "Fine, I'll figure it out." And he walked toward the door. I could have let him go, but mothers never really do they? We just pretend to. So I called out, "Daniel!" He stopped, hand on the glass door. "Do you remember what you told me when you were 10? He frowned. "What?" I smiled faintly. "You said, 'Mama, if I ever make a mistake, you'll forgive me first.'" He swallowed, didn't answer. Then he left. The rain followed him out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the storm fade into the hum of crickets, and I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't angry because he left me here. I was angry because I still loved him enough to hope he'd come back different. If you're still here, tell me in the comments, have you ever wished for someone to change, not because you needed them to love you again, but because you wanted to love them without pain? The next morning, the nurse said, "Miss M, someone left a note for you." It was on the breakfast tray, folded, smudged from rain. "I'm sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have asked. I'll fix it. I'll make you proud again." I pressed the note against my chest. For the first time in years, I let myself believe maybe the storm had finally reached him too.
Weeks passed before I heard from Daniel again. His note stayed tucked inside the drawer by my bed, next to my rosary, the photograph of his father, and a small jar of seashells I collected when I could still walk on the sand. Sometimes I'd read it before lights out, whispering the words like a prayer. "I'll fix it. I'll make you proud again." Maybe I believed him because hope is the only luxury we're allowed in here, and it's the cheapest one to keep. Then one afternoon, about 3 weeks later, the nurse wheeled me to the sunroom. The TV was on low, and the air smelled faintly of oranges and disinfectant. And there he was, Daniel, sitting in one of the wicker chairs, staring out the window like he'd been there for hours. I froze. He looked different. The suit was gone. In its place, jeans and a wrinkled shirt. He looked human again. Tired, but human. When he saw me, he smiled. "Hey, Mom." Not forced this time, just soft. He took my hand. No introduction, no speech, no asking. Just sat there holding it like he used to when he was a child afraid of thunder. "I found a job. It's not much, but it's mine." I nodded, letting the silence breathe between us. Then he added, "I sold the condo. I didn't need all that space anyway." I smiled faintly. Sometimes the more you own, the more it owns you. He laughed under his breath. "You always say that." "I always mean it." We spent an hour together. No talk about money, no apologies rehearsed. He told me about the diner near his new apartment, about the waitress who reminded him of me, about how good the coffee tasted when you don't have anything left to prove. And for the first time in years, it felt like us again, mother and son, not a man and his guilt. Before he left, he said, "Can I come back tomorrow?" I said, "You don't have to ask, Daniel. You never had to ask." He kissed my forehead, and I swear I felt the boy he once was, all freckles and scraped knees, pressing against the man he had become. When he walked out, I didn't cry, not because I wasn't moved, because sometimes when grace finally arrives, it's too sacred for tears. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the parking lot, I sat by the window and watched the palm trees bend in the breeze. And I thought, maybe this was what forgiveness really looks like. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet decision to let love breathe again. A week later, Daniel started visiting every Sunday. He'd bring me small things, a slice of pie, a magazine, a seashell from Clearwater Beach. He even brought a little radio so I could listen to the old country songs his father loved. The nurses noticed. "You got a good son," one said. I smiled. "He's learning." Then, one afternoon, Daniel didn't show. No call, no text, just the same empty chair by the window. I waited an hour, then two. By evening, the receptionist wheeled in a bouquet of lilies. "From your son," she said. "He called this morning, said he couldn't come today." The card read, "For my favorite girl. I'll visit soon, I promise." I traced the ink with my finger, and for once, I didn't feel abandoned, because promises, like people, can grow back different. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you, not because they deserved it, but because your heart couldn't survive holding the pain anymore? That night, I fell asleep with the radio playing softly. Johnny Cash's voice filled the room. "We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when." And somewhere between verse and silence, I whispered, "I know where, Daniel. Here, right here." It's been 3 years since the day Daniel first came back to me. Sometimes he visits every Sunday. Sometimes he misses one or two. But when he does come, I don't count how long he stays anymore. I've learned that love doesn't live in minutes. It lives in presence. He brings small things, seashells, postcards from places he's been driving through for work, a photo of his daughter starting kindergarten,
My granddaughter. Her name's Lily. He says she looks like me. I told him that's my favorite compliment. This morning, the sky was washed in that soft Florida blue that only comes after a storm. The nurses opened all the blinds and the room filled with light. I could hear the gulls outside and the steady rhythm of the fountain in the courtyard. I turned my head toward the window and thought, so this is peace. Not the kind that comes when everything's fixed, but the kind that settles in when you finally stop needing to fix it. Daniel came later that afternoon. No suit, no phone buzzing, just him, holding 2 cups of lemonade and smiling like the world had stopped rushing. We sat out on the patio. The air was heavy with salt and orange blossoms. He said, "I got a promotion, Mom. It's honest work this time." I laughed softly. Those are the only kind worth having. He leaned back in his chair. You know, I used to think success meant leaving everything behind. But now I just want to hold on to what's left. I reached for his hand. And that's how you win, sweetheart. For a long while, we didn't talk. We just listened. The fountain, the wind through the palms, the clink of ice in our cups. The world outside this place moved like a memory we'd both forgiven. Later, after he left, I stayed out there until the sky turned pink and gold. The same color it had been that night he first left me here. Only this time, it didn't hurt to watch it fade. Because even when life doesn't give you what you deserve, it still finds a way to give you what you need, just slower, softer, and almost too late to recognize. If you're still here with me, tell me, have you ever loved someone enough to wait for them to become the person they were always meant to be? It's funny. When I first moved into this nursing home, I thought I'd been put away, tucked somewhere to be forgotten. Now, I understand it differently. This place wasn't my ending. It was my pause, the quiet between heartbreak and grace. And in that pause, my son came home. Not the man in the suit, the boy who once promised he'd take care of me. He kept his promise, just not in the way I imagined. Tonight, as I write this, the air smells of rain again. The nurses are humming down the hall. Daniel's photo sits by my lamp. Him and Lily on the beach, her tiny hand clutching a seashell. I touch the glass and whisper, "I'm proud of you, son. You finally remembered where home was." Because here, on True Life Stories, we don't just tell stories, we remember them. Subscribe, stay with us, and help the silence end one true story at a time.